these are top 5 most OP builds in Power of Exile 2 0.5. In this video, we're not only looking at the raw damage, but also how good the build feels from a real league start all the way to the maxed endgame. We'll go over the 0.5 changes, how well it maps, how it scales with investment, and how much this patched, buffed or nerfed it. Some of these builds are insane day 1 starters, some are better once you reach early maps, and some can scale into the endgame monsters with very little currency. And remember, if you wanna try any of these builds out, then check my links in description. And if you ever played this game for long enough, then you know that grind for currency can feel endless, and that's where Elixir.gg comes in. They are a trusted American-based platform built by actual players. They offer cheap divine, chaos, and exalted orbs as well as mirrors. Think of any item or currency that you can get in the game and they will deliver. What I really like is how smooth the whole process feels, from few clicks on their website to in-game currency in minutes. So what are you waiting for? If you wanna skip the grind and enjoy the game your way, then click my link description and use code KAID for 50% off. So first up we have deadeye, and this is currently one of the best mapping builds in the game. For 0.5, looks even stronger in the endgame, because bow builds will now get more arrow scaling from the quivers, and this is huge for this type of skill. Going from around 3 arrows to 4, 5 or even 6 is not just a small upgrade, but it changes how much the screen coverage you have and how hard your boss setup can shotgun. On top of it, snipe also got buffed for the endgame damage, which means the build can still one-shot map bosses early and scale into pinnacle bosses with investment. And the way that it works is that you fire once, then the screen freezes, Herald of Ice starts chaining, and everything disappears before it can reach you. The gameplay is extremely satisfying, because every pack turns into a cold explosion chain, and the build keeps getting better the more arrows, crit and projectile scaling we add. The only real downside is the early campaign nerf, especially around the snipe damage. It is not build breaking, but you may need to add the extra freeze rotation on some bosses. However, once you reach the ice shot, tornado shot and stronger gear, then that problem completely disappears. For mapping, we mostly shoot ice shot and then move on, and then for bosses we place tornado shot between you and the target, and then use freezing mark, charge mark and freezing salvo to set up the freeze, shock, sustain and armor break. Overall, with this build you get screen wide clear, great boss damage, high evasion, ghost dance recovery, and a low input playstyle that almost becomes one button with enough gear. And next up we have Twister Spirit Walker, and this is probably one of the strongest league starter clear builds in 0.5. Twister was already one of the best campaign and early mapping skills, and it now looks insane because it has ridiculous widescreen clear on a very low investment. On pure leveling gear, this build can enter maps and clear breaches in a way that many other builds simply cannot match. The main 0.5 reason that this build stands out is the attack builds will continue to scale very well, and specifically the Spirit Walker will give extra projectile value through the owl setup. That means the build can push its clear even harder, especially once you start combining the dodge roll bonuses. Deadeye is also a strong option, but Spirit Walker will give the extra projectile angle that makes this build feel very explosive. However, the trade-off is not full automation. This will never be a true one-button build, so your basic loop is Whirling Slash into Barrage and then into Twister. And early, you may also press Ice-Tipped Arrows or the War Banner. If you like the Spirit Walker, then you can also add Dodge Roll into the setup for the Owl projectile bonus. So yes, this build is very strong, but it requires for you to play a combo rotation. For mapping, we want to build Whirlwinds with the Whirling Slash, then fire Twister and then let the screen get shredded. For bossing, we use Barrage, Rapid Assault or Explosive Spear, depending on our setup. The other weakness is that Whirling Slash can feel clunky in tight indoor maps, because it scales with attack speed and not movement speed. But if you can handle the movement and the buttons, then this is easily one of the most powerful 0.5 builds in the whole game. Then next up we have Grenades Deadeye, and honestly this is surprising that grenades were not hit harder in 0.5. This was already one of the best campaign speedrunners and early progression setups, and now it remains extremely strong from the Act 1 all the way into the maps and the endgame. The big 0.5 selling point is that grenade builds themselves were mostly left alone, and that means that the core power is still there. Explosive grenade, all grenade, gas grenade, the cluster grenade, mortar cannons, and even explosive shot still gives you great clear and huge each single target. There's also a new crossbow base type with modifiers, which opens even more scaling potential for the crossbows and grenade setups. The main nerf to this build is not to the grenades directly. The Arjune's metal got reduced from a guaranteed bolt return on a kill, which hurts the higher end crossbow versions more than just a pure grenade setup. So if you're playing heavy grenade focus, then the early and mid game is still very good. However, if you wanted to lean harder into the crossbow ammo automation, then that part is now weaker, but still not completely dead. And as you can see from the gameplay, the playstyle is super fun. We just run forward, shoot explosive shot, dodge roll to reload, throw grenades into big packs, and then detonate everything with massive elemental damage. For mapping, explosive clear will clear most of the packs, and cluster grenades will handle dense groups. And then for bosses, you set up the wall grenade for exposure. And from here, just throw explosive grenades and detonate everything. Deadeye will give the smoothest mapping and the highest damage feel, while the Witch Hunter can still be a tankier option. The only thing to watch out for is the mana cost on high skill levels and early evasion squishiness. So if you were looking for one of the craziest builds with massive explosions going off 24/7, then this is the build for you. And next up we have the Whirling Assault Martial Artist, and this is one of the most exciting builds for me in 0.5, because the new Martial Artist stats look insane. The build uses Whirling Assault to clear packs, to start the power charge generation, to build a combo, and then just fuel the charge staff, Flicker Shock, Falling Thunder, or even the Tempest Belt bossing. It is basically a fast melee engine, where every hit is setting up the next burst window. The biggest 0.5 changes are huge for this build. The Hollow Focus can create bells around you, and those bells may be used for utility, stun, culling, and the charge generation. Hollow Resonance will give a bell on your back that triggers through crits and adds damage plus utility. Then Way of the Stone Fist can transform gloves into a much stronger version by giving you extra damage, max resistances, base crit, skill quality, and potentially the power charge on a crit. And now the Tempest Belt can now be ancestrally boosted, meaning that we can drop multiple bells in one for huge boss damage. Then defensively, this patch also helps because evasion and deflection received major improvements. This version will stack Energy Shield, Evasion, Deflection, Chaos, Inoculation, and the Savron Satchel for the instant Energy Shield recovery. And once you have enough Energy Shield, then the Chaos Inoculation removes the Chaos damage as a weakness. This build does not need investment and proper gearing. We want a high crit quarterstaff with strong gloves, hybrid evasion Energy Shield armor, the Subterfuge mask scaling, flood damage rings, mana leech, and power charge support. So if you were looking for one of the best monk builds in the game, then here you found it. And now for the last one, we have Plant Oracle, and this is the easiest build on the list that I recommend for players that want power without a complicated rotation. In 0.5, the Plant Druid is especially strong, because it gives you almost everything an endgame character would want on a very low budget. So it's cheap, smooth, tanky through Energy Shield, and already strong enough to destroy higher tier maps. This new 0.5 Oracle package also makes the build scale extremely well, through the forced outcome, because inevitable crits will let the cast on critical will trigger the Thunderstorm and permanently water your plants. This massively will increase the plant's damage while keeping the gameplay very simple. For gameplay, we simply press and tangle, the ground will fill with the plants, enemies will get slowed, shocked, broken, and deleted. This is not a fake one-button gameplay. For mapping, this is really mostly just one button, which is why this build feels so comfortable. And then for tougher rares and bosses, we just add in the Trashing Vines. During the boss phases, you place down the Sigil of Power from your Chimming Staff, then stand inside the circle, keep the Entangle active, and use the Trashing Vines for the real single target damage. And until the cast on critical is online, you can manually cast Thunderstorm on elites and bosses. And Find Realities will let you reach powerful nodes without wasting too many travel points, while Energy Shield will keep the build safe. Then gear is also simple. You want to get big Energy Shield chest, spell levels, physical spell levels, the cast speed, crit and movement speed boots, as well as night scale if the mana feels rough. Overall, this build is safe, fun, and best of all budget friendly, so that you can use it to dominate the game.